Michael is the Director of Educational Technology at Penn Charter, and Faith Ward is the Director of Libraries at Penn Charter. Penn Charter is the oldest Quaker school in the world, founded in 1689. It's located in Philadelphia. So, Mike, let's start with you. Describe your role as Director of Educational Technology at Penn Charter. What are your main responsibilities?
Yeah, we're a medium-sized independent school, and my role is to kind of, assist teachers as they use technology to, have great classes. So that's changed over time, but always has been about bringing in new ideas to be able to reach students in new ways.
That's great. And what are some of the initiatives you're currently working on at the school?
Sure, it's been a long one, but we've instituted a learning management system, a one-stop shop where students can check in and see what it is that they need to do for their homework and to progress their learning. A single place for teachers to also be able to share what it is that they're teaching, and a place where parents can check in and see the progress of their students in appropriate ways for the age of the student. That's a long-term project started about 15 years ago at most schools. And we're always looking in on it to see how it's going. Real central to organizing learning for students. But more recently and more, about what you're interested in is looking at AI for schools in general and humans.
What is the LMS that you're using? What is that called? Is that a third-party tool that you've integrated, or is this something that's custom built?
Sure, it's kind of on the boring side of things, but our learning management system is from a company called Blackbaud, and we call it the hub at
Mhm.
Penn Charter, uh, in that it's the central hub from which other things radiate. The nice thing about it, no one likes their learning management system. Um,
I've heard that.
yeah, although I'd be open to stories about people who are passionate about it. But the beauty of it for our school in helping students connect with their work is that it's deeply connected to our SIS. So the LMS, Learning Management System, connects to the Student Information System. And in that way, any changes, a new picture of a student from photo day in the beginning of the year gets uploaded and is seen in rosters right away, changes in address, changes in phone numbers. All that stuff that adds friction if you don't manage it in other schools is pretty frictionless. Um, but we're always looking at how it is that, in addition to being smooth and providing the right information and updated information right away,
Mhm.
that'd be innovative. So there's the kind of a tension there where some tools are really smooth, some tools are really innovative, and but not one tool does all.
Interesting. And you're also a teacher at Penn Charter?
I am, yeah. Yeah, I teach computer science, um, passion of mine,
Yeah.
and also Quakerism.
Okay. We'll get into that in a bit. Faith, you're the Director of Libraries at Penn Charter. Do you manage all of the libraries? And also, how many libraries are there at Penn Charter?
Sure. There are two libraries on campus, one that serves our lower school, pre-K through 5. And then we have the Gummery Library, which is situated in the upper school schoolhouse. And that serves both our middle school and our upper school, so grades 6 through 12. I should also add that the Gummery Library serves every faculty and staff member. So there's a tension and a balance between the collection and provision of digital and print materials that
Hmm.
are for adults and are for 10-year-olds in this particular collection.
Okay. And what are your primary responsibilities as the director of all these libraries?
What I really appreciate about working in a school is that we're mission-based, right? So the library has a mission closely aligned to the mission of the school. And that is to help our students first and foremost become successful and ethical users of information. That's a big task given the influx of access that they have to sources of information and the requirement that we have as a rigorous college prep program to get them synthesizing, analyzing, and making new meaning out of this information.
Okay.
So primarily we work with students who are doing research, but there's also this mission to help students acquire a love of reading, because that's going to serve them well beyond the doors of Penn Charter and is going to be a requirement of their academic trajectory, beyond being a senior in high school. And that is something we've really worked on this year, is just getting kids in different grades and talking to them about what's new, in the fiction market, or what's new in the nonfiction market that they might just pick up in addition to everything that they're doing required for their academics.
What do those sessions look like? You bring students in, you bring in a particular grade, and you say, here are the top 10 fiction books, nonfiction books. What does that look like?
I do book talks. So I'll
Okay.
have students come over primarily from middle school, but I did it recently with a group of 12th graders who were navigating the space between the November break and this winter break. And their requirement was like, pick up, student choice driven, pick up a title that's of interest to you, and let's see what you can do with that. So I scour lots of professional publications that are talking about best of lists for 2024, but also going to our great independent bookstores here in Philly, talking to my colleagues working in independent schools across the country about like what are you liking? What are your kids checking out? And we're so lucky to be living in an era where there's just so much being published for people that I think is not small in scope. I book talked a book to sixth grade the other day on poisonous weeds and plants, narrative nonfiction, talking about plants that have killed famous people, how they were used in the Salem witch trials. And I think what it does is it really builds curiosity in our students, and it also helps them look at the world around them outside of school in a new way. So really, it's just getting the kids in here, talking to them about books, and then letting them go. Like, look what's on the shelf that, excites you, or search the catalog and put in your most outrageous query and see what comes up that matches it.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. Do you bring in local book authors?
We have, and we've also brought in authors from, we had an author last year, author illustrator from Connecticut, one from Vermont the year before. So we do definitely try and get authors in, because that makes the process of writing and publishing real to our students. We had Neil Shusterman 3 years ago. He's a widely read young adult author. So we try and get someone in to talk to the students about what they're doing and how they found success professionally, either illustrating or writing.
Right. It's like you're bringing in, like, here's someone who's actually doing it. Here's someone who's in that space actually writing books.
Absolutely. And it may seem like a stretch, when you're 11 or 12, how you might do that. So I think the benefit of being with someone in person and asking them how they did it, what their education looked like, or how they broke into the publishing industry can be a really valuable one.
Mike, you describe yourself on your LinkedIn. You describe yourself as a Quaker technologist. What does that mean?
Yeah. There's always innovation, so it's not a new thing. And through time, Quakers, I'm a Quaker. Um, that is to say, that's my practicing religion. But through time, Quakers really try to stop and reflect about, what is happening, to find their truth, to find the sense of what is true in the communities that they're in. For those that believe in God, what it is that God is looking, to have moved through us as we live our lives. And so that goes for, soft pretty, quiet things in life, but
Mhm.
also like brash, brand new, things that you plug into electricity. So it's always been my interest to not just accept new technologies and new innovations, but think about them in terms of the gain that you can get from them,
I see.
the loss that occurs through their use, and try to be purposeful through that path. Um, with every change comes, for some, they would call it like innovation, but others would call it like abomination. So this idea of being a Quaker technologist has me thinking, what are the gains? What are the losses? Let's be purposeful as we navigate the tensions between them.
Tell me about your journey into technology generally, and then specifically educational technology. How did you get into this space?
Oh, wow. My dad got a color computer from Radio Shack when I was a kid,
Oh, wow.
and he's always been technologically minded and kind of at the forefront of new things. And that thing was just fascinating to little Michael Moulton. Um, and so I couldn't get enough of it. Like, here was a tool that helped me explore my mind.
Mhm. Hmm.
Seymour Papert was on the scene in MIT in the learning and epistemology part of the media, what became the Media Lab, and he created Lego Logo,
Mhm.
um, where kids, as you know, could control a little triangle turtle and tell it where to go through programming and algorithms, and just couldn't get enough. So I got like some middle school courses at a local college, always in the basement. These like computer courses are like always in the basement,
Yeah.
in the soft glow of the green Wise terminals, back in the early 80s.
Relegated to the
Um,
basement.
yeah, always relegated to the basement. But my interest in that led me, I'll go faster forward, to working for a senior project in my high school with what's called the intermediate unit, a Montgomery County intermediate unit. In Pennsylvania, public school districts are served by these intermediate units that do technology and AV and other kinds of unique services. And so 16-year-old Michael Moulton went to the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit for half his day during his senior year after doing like a morning of courses and getting some lunch. But what they wanted me to do was like help teachers be able to use Apple IIe's to be able
Mhm.
to communicate between Philadelphia and Australia, so that kids could compare what peanut butter tastes like compared to Vegemite. And that just like took me even further. Like, wow, like, we had these real-time communications with people so far away. And it really turned learning into like true discovery. So that led me to Drexel University with a co-op program working for the Franklin Institute, using technology to teach science concepts in museum exhibits. Then the Girl Scouts of the USA to implement their first websites for girls, with an amazing team of women at their headquarters in Manhattan, thinking about how to use this brand new telecommunications technology, the web, to be able to further this program that started in the early 1900s.
Mhm.
And then here to Penn Charter.
So it sounds like a lot of your experience with technology has been teaching others to use technology for various use cases.
Yeah, I think so. I'm a lot like Faith in that. Well, I'm lucky to work with Faith, and she's a model for this. I'm a lot like Faith because I think of it as like technology librarianship, in that I'm there waiting for the passion to come in the door, and then
Mhm.
just to assist with the passion.
I see. Faith, you've worked at multiple educational institutions as a librarian. Tell me about your journey into library science and education.
It's a great question. I originally thought that my librarianship would be focused on museum and special collections. And as a graduate student pursuing my library degree, we had an assignment to go look at a museum that was innovatively utilizing information and having their users access it digitally. And I went to the Holocaust Memorial Museum. This is many decades ago.
Mhm.
And that was a museum that had transformed the user's experience by being able to research survivors and follow the trajectory that they had through images, through artifacts, and it was all accessible remotely and at the museum. And it was that experience where I saw librarianship utilizing technology in a way that was meaningful and, as I said, transformative. So I knew that I wanted to work with students in some capacity to help amplify their learning experience. I see libraries as repositories in school, yes, of information, but also as places that can help transform and through collaborative work with teachers, enhance the student's learning experience.
Okay. That's interesting. So a lot of focus on not only your interest in making information available, but the access of that information and how it's made available to teachers, students, and others.
Yes. I think Michael and I do a lot of work with our faculty collaborating. We're a thought partner when it comes to technology. We're a thought partner when it comes to accessing information and seeing how we can amplify the scope of what students might be digging into.
Okay.
And that, I think, ultimately results in a better student experience because you have two heads looking at it, multiple perspectives, helping expand what the students might research or study and what their ultimate product might be from researching.
I see. Okay. Mike, you've been with Penn Charter for over 26 years. Is that right?
Yeah.
How has the role of educational technology evolved during that time? I imagine it's evolved quite a bit.
Sure. Yeah. In the late 90s, there was usually in schools, and this probably is something you're familiar with. There was the science teacher or the librarian or a math teacher who also just got interested in computers. And then more and more, they became the person for the school. They were the school computer person.
Mhm.
And that was the case when I came to Penn Charter in the late 90s. Uh, Schools really grew out of that because it wasn't a side thing. It became more a main show.
Mhm.
And so I was happy to be able to come on at a time when this school decided to, commit themselves to being able to harness the power of technology for running the school, but also teaching and learning. Pretty exciting. Um, but still, early times here for me were doing everything, like running around with discs to help people with report writing and
I remember those.
um, right, just so cumbersome. Taking care of server closets that got too hot, and then coming back and helping a teacher with word processing and helping other teachers who are a little more advanced with things connect to World Wide Web resources, which were becoming available. So it was still a jack of all trades, um, in the beginning. But what's been great is that with the advance of the use of technology in all areas of business and education, there's more specialty work going on. So we have an amazing team here now, multiple people who are taking care of the infrastructure that keeps things working. And it allows other people like myself and people in our Center for Teaching and Learning to be able to really focus on the learning part and the innovation.
So it sounded like a lot of I guess, your early exposure was tech support, I guess in the 90s. And I'm not sure exactly when it became more of a commitment at Penn Charter to dedicate resources to technology generally. But the early days were tech support. And then that turned into obviously teaching a computer science course and then also using technology to really help with education.
Yes. Yeah, and as new innovations come, this school and others like it really look to take advantage of it to extend what we're able to do with kids. So in the beginning, just email was a big technology. Now it's the bane of our existence. But there was a lot of email going on. And then with early web stuff, being able to be sophisticated with teachers and students doing web searching. Really exciting was this whole Web 2.0 movement, which was a little over a decade ago when it first started with the read-write web.
Yeah.
Or we say now the cloud. That just really blew things open in like 2008, 2009, with teachers seeing how it is that they and students could not only consume internet resources, but create them. Pretty exciting. And now with AI, whole new terrain
Yeah.
for thinking about how to extend thought.
So Faith, you talked about this a bit, but technology is obviously changing quite a bit, continuously shaping libraries. How do you see the purpose of a library evolving with these massive advances in technology and AI moving forward?
I think the capacity that we have to help students be good navigators of that landscape is going to be the primary role that we serve, because we can't curate it all. We can't be the sole provisioner of information, but helping students and in general users know what the landscape looks like and what some of the standardized tools are for navigating that platform, I think, are going to be the things that will help keep our relevancy. The American public has a tremendous trust in librarians as a profession.
Mhm.
And I really feel like I do not want to squander that with my students. I want to really predicate that as part of our learning relationship so that they are able to come to us and say, I really don't know what to make of these Gemini search results. I want your help helping figuring out what they mean and where I can get the citations that the AI has provided for me. And I think there's another aspect to the work that we do that's really important, and that's pushing the curtain aside, saying utilizing AI is something that's a life skill for you. It might not be appropriate per the syllabi in your class that you're taking per the teacher, but how might you still be able to use it to navigate the college application process, or searching to get some really good reviews and feedback on a college's program that you're interested in applying to. That's a school-based example, but in a way, it's really a life skill example.
Mhm. So you really focus on helping students be good navigators and to use this plethora of tools that are available.
And absolutely. I think there's also a reality to the fact that students still have to read. They still have to be able to analyze the search results that they get and figure out what those mean. I'll give you an example. I've been working with our 9th grade seminar, doing some sessions on AI. And the most recent one that I've done is on determining whether or not an image has been created by a human or has been AI generated. Like the new Sora came out maybe like 10 days ago, right? So it's like showing them just what a text-based command will generate in a live video.
Right.
But we've been looking at static pictures and figuring out which one was created by Kandinsky versus the one where I prompted ideogram to make a fake Keith Haring, right? And it's really interesting because you get a prompt like that and you can see everyone's thinking. They're making their thinking visible about like what they looked at, why they thought what they did, what were some of the questions they asked about it. But I think that what the students struggled with was using TinEye to do a reverse image search, and we got results from the platform that said these are all the places on the internet that we saw this file, right? And they had trouble they had a challenge reading all of the different pieces of information that said where that photo had appeared in the past 6 months. So we're doing, yes, navigating tools and platforms, but we're also reminding students of the basic reading skills that they have and how they apply those in a digital environment.
That makes sense. You mentioned, is it TinEye? Is that the tool?
Mm-hmm.
What is that? Can you
Yeah.
describe what that is? What does that do?
It's a web-based search engine that looks at photos and it will tell you the history of that photo on the internet. So I used an example for the students because we often talk about individuals submitting something using AI when they should have been applying their human skills to do the
Okay.
work, right?
Mhm.
So I used an example that was reported in Art News a couple months ago about a photographer from, he was from Europe, and he had submitted a photo that he took himself to an AI generated photography contest. And he got the award, the user award for third place, and he also was given an award by the actual judges. And what he wound up saying was, I took this photo with my camera. This was not AI generated in any way.
Mhm.
And we don't really have the capacity to be able to differentiate the two. That's why I submitted this. So it
Mhm.
was interesting for the students because when I showed them the picture, they couldn't believe that it wasn't fake. So I said, well, let's take a look at TinEye and see what TinEye says about where this photo has been. And when you do it by a real photographer, it's showing all the different places where it had been noted in the media, where it had been noted in Art News.
Mhm.
Whereas we took a photo generated by ideogram. I did one by Midjourney too, and there's no data on it. So
Mhm.
that's a quick way for students to say, oh, that has to be or is more likely to be generated by AI because it didn't show up on a blog on Tumblr. It didn't show up on the New York Times. It's not a Getty image.
I see.
But these are all ways in which students are building their basic knowledge about how these tools work and how they provide a window of information about the originality of all of this media that's created and surrounds them on their feeds, on their news app. It's a lot for them to sift through, and we're chipping away at it bit by bit.
What's the big difference between TinEye and something like ChatGPT for extracting information from images? So is the difference the training data? Like, does TinEye have access to information about photos, paintings, other visual art that ChatGPT doesn't? Is it just a more specific tool for actual image recognition and extraction? What's the difference? Do you know?
It's been around for a while, and it's basically a search engine that's looking,
Yeah.
I don't know what other data it's looking at by the photograph. I will say, Brandon, that we also talked about Google's reverse image search, which a lot of the students can use on their phone. You know, if they open up their camera and take a picture of something, depending on their settings, Google will say like, oh, do you want to know what this photo is
Right.
of? You know? But I was also showing them that you can take Google on your desktop and you can sort of move around a small camera field
Yeah.
and you can have Google simultaneously search what that image is. And we utilize that photo feature on some AI generated photos that included real, like a bird, like it included a bird of paradise. But Google wasn't able to also say like, oh, this is not the right color for this bird of paradise.
Oh, that's
Again,
interesting.
I think students, first of all, every student is on their own learning path, and some of them have skills that far exceed mine.
Hmm.
Some of them have skills that are still developing. And so I think having a chance for them to teach one another too is one of the best parts of teaching, because you can see someone in your class who has expert skills and you can just get them to sort of highlight their journey. And it's much more powerful peer to peer than it is me to them.
I imagine you're learning quite a bit from the students.
Yes, I am. And I should also say that I'm learning a lot about the way in which they value AI generated material and how that syncs up with their tastes. So we had a ethical discussion about finding out that your favorite artist didn't really write the song, they used a tool to make it.
Right.
And the students really landed on, if I like it, it doesn't matter to me whether it was used with software or whether it was generated out of, an artist writing it at their desk in their
Right.
studio.
Yeah.
And I think that's very valid. And I think that's also something that we as a different generation
Mhm.
have to blend into our collecting methodologies, right? Like I shouldn't be saying, oh no, we can't collect that book because it wasn't written by a well-regarded author with scholarship behind them. If they like it and they want to read it, that has some validity too. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, the
It's like,
gatekeeping, I think, is changing for us as professionals.
so you're separating the process from the product. How was the book written versus who wrote it, what tool was used, and what were they, what was the process for creating that book or for a song? Did a songwriter write that song because they were feeling a particular way, or they were writing the song about something in the world versus some other tool generating that song? Does it really matter? Because if you like the end product, then it shouldn't really matter how it was created.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How they value the creation process, I think, is different than some of us do. And I'm learning from that. And I think we're going to continue to see a mashup of how
Yeah.
artists create things. There's no limit to what they can do with all of the tools that are at their disposal. And they will invariably come up with something new because they're powering it with both human and artificial intelligence.
Mike, how do you go about researching and selecting specific technology solutions? Can you provide a specific example of a particular need at the school and the process you went through for identifying the solution?
Sure, some tools come from the top down. There might be identified a need for students and parents to have better access to information about classes and how students' progress is going in those. So that's where something like a learning management system comes from.
Hmm.
School identifies a need and then goes from that top into other areas.
Yeah.
But most innovation, of course, happens bottom up, where teachers, a particular teacher connects with a new idea out at a conference, or in something that they've read, and they brought it to school saying like, hey, how about parlay ideas, as a way to help structure group conversations in class. And so we look at that together and think about if it works in the ecosystem of the school's technology. We almost always find a way to make good ideas work. And from those germs, those seeds grow sometimes, little gardens where a few teachers enjoy the tool, but sometimes they burst forth huge, fields of growth. So we've had a lot of work in a tool called Formative. I talked about parlay ideas. There's a tool that's been around for a few years called Flowcabulary. So if you think about growing students' knowledge about vocabulary, but bringing in creative expression as a way to get at that. These are all examples of tools that came from the bottom up.
Hmm. And what is parlay ideas? How does that work?
There are different ways to have group conversations, and we know that different modalities help different style people be able to express themselves in a group.
Mhm.
So it's really just a way to help different kinds of learners be able to join into a conversation about a social studies idea, usually conversations about humanities topics.
And how does formative work?
Formative is, at its teacher's introduction to formative is often, how can I take this thing like a handout, not to be too like, old-fashioned and basic, but make that handout something that is automated. Through the automation, it makes the teacher's life easier, but even more exciting than that, you can get feedback on how you're doing as a student on the material. So it's kind of like taking the old, well, let's go way back, the old mimeograph pages
Yeah.
that smelled, and were a little wet when we got them,
Right.
from the photocopying process, or
Love
more
that smell.
recently, like
Love that
photocopy.
smell.
Yeah, yeah, that goes way back. And turning them into an interactive format that, instead of waiting for someone to wade through all of the writing from students and then mark it up and give it back, like students get feedback right away.
I see.
So that's the name formative it's formative assessment. It's like a formative check-in, rather than summative, where you're being tested for your grade, but you're really getting feedback right away about what you understand and what you need to understand.
Okay. So let's get into AI a little bit more. How do you support the school in handling the usage of AI tools like ChatGPT and others for coursework? So, and also the policies around that. Are they grade specific? Are they course specific? Are they left to a teacher's discretion? What's the, what are your thoughts in your process and approach to all this?
Sure. If I could start it off, then I'd love to hand it to Faith, because she's been a real leader in helping the school navigate our entry into
Mhm.
use, like like thoughtful, purposeful use of this new technology. Um,
Sounds like Quakerism.
Say again. Sounds like Quakerism. Yep. So I'll just introduce by saying, here's a force that's coming at the school like wind.
Yeah.
It's not something that you can just duck. So it was first a group of vanguard teachers, teachers at the front of this, saying like, hey, this is not, optional. This is a new force in the world that we need to reckon with,
Yeah.
to be able to navigate it well. Recognizing that, and then sharing with the school that we need time as people who are interested in this topic to be able to research it, and then bring from that time something to the school for their consideration as we move forward. A lot of schools were asking themselves, do we need a policy, an AI policy? That is to say, a set of rules to like legislate and relegate the use of the technology to certain places.
Yeah.
But from this vanguard group of people working on it that were kind of turned loose by the school, and given resources to do investigations into this, it turned out to be much more an exercise of looking at really good guidelines, like rules of the road for driving with AI in a safe way, in a way that's going to get us to the destinations we're trying to go. And so we did that. We started that work this summer, and that work continues. But I'd love to hand it over to Faith, because she's been a real leader in that.
We spent a little bit of time this summer as a group of cross-content area teachers, and Michael, our director of teaching and learning, Marianne Master. We sat down and we did a benchmark, which I think is where everyone tends to start, right? Like, what are our peers' school doing? How are they approaching this? Keeping in mind two fundamental things. Flexibility. I think if you put something down that is, absolutely sedentary, you're going to only find yourself going back and changing it.
Mhm.
Flexibility is inherent to the technology as it's being shaped and released on the street for us. And the second big piece of our approach to AI in the schoolhouse is, how can we ground our use of it in our Quaker values, right? Like, when the ethical considerations around how some of these models scraped data that evaded any copyright sensitivity or legality, how people who put some of that data together were not compensated appropriately, or efficiently? How are we teaching our students to look at inherent biases in search results that they are getting, and really making sure that those don't exist anymore? How are we also recognizing that many of the people that we work with do not have the same foundation that we have in terms of technology? So what are we doing to help them feel comfortable utilizing the technology with the students in their class? And it was through Michael's contacts and a lot of ed tech experience that we landed on using Flint K-12 at Penn Charter, in addition to Magic School, which is utilized primarily with our elementary school teachers. And then we're using Brisk, which is an add-on to Chrome that provides feedback on written material that students are submitting outside of some of our tools like Turnitin, that are looking at how originality shows up in the work that our students are submitting for assignments. So I think what we did was we, in a way, triaged AI by coming at it in multiple aspects. And we also really thought intentionally about what can we help our teachers use in a way that's safe, that's COPA compliant, where we are working with students who are under 18. So many of these tools are not to be used with students who are under 18 without express permission from parents, or parents and caregivers. I think we landed on something that has served us well and has also shown the path forward and where we might continue to curate and rein in the guidance that we have for students in each of their classes.
You mentioned a lot of interesting technologies here. I just want to dig in a little bit. First of all, what is COPA compliance?
COPA compliance is making sure that we are, in essence, that our students' data and privacy is not being compromised in any way. So Flint K-12 is an AI platform. They actually it was a ChatGPT model, but they moved over to Claude just like, I don't know, about a month ago. That's providing all the information that the tool serves up. But our students can play with it, submit their queries, but none of that is going back to the model and being tracked and utilized.
And what is Magic School?
Magic School is another AI platform that is primarily, our use of it is teacher facing. So our teachers can use it to help craft assignments, to help get feedback on student work, and to think broadly and expansively about lesson planning and about unit design. So it's sort of having a teacher having the capacity to have their own writing tutor alongside of them looking at student work. Magic School has released a student-facing platform, which would really equate it a lot more with Flint K-12, where we go in, we assign students to be in a classroom, and then we utilize different AI tools to be used within that specific content area.
And Brisk, it sounds like it's similar to Grammarly. You said it's a plugin for Chrome. This is basically checking written work and providing recommendations. Yeah.
So I'm sorry, Brisk can be comprehensive and robust. You can submit a rubric for the assignment that you have given to students, and it'll use that rubric and provide feedback. But one big element that it does is look at the authenticity of the writing. So it will be able to quickly scan and say, yep, it picked up this from this website, or it picked up, this is likely AI generated. It's just another feature of it. And whether our teachers choose to use that or just focus on the feedback part or having students use it in a proactive way to look at how their work would be graded according to the rubric, and then giving them time to revise before final submission is also, I think, another use of AI that's very much aligned to our teaching values and our teaching goals.
I see. So do you provide these tools as like a menu of options to teachers when they're just depending on, I don't know, what courses they're teaching, what the subjects are? This is the list of approved AI related tools that they can use for their courses? Or can teachers bring in their own tools that they would like to use? Is there a policy around that, or is this really here's what we have? We have Kate, we have Flint, we have Magic School, we have Brisk, we have Turnitin. These are the ones you can use. These are the approved tools.
I think what's worked for Penn Charter, but we're always evaluating, is to have a master list. We have an ed tech tool guide
Oh,
for each division, for each
okay.
of our schools within the larger school. And there are division specific sets of tools that we support, that we pay for, that you can get extra value from. So teachers don't have to go out there and figure out everything themselves. They don't have to pay for things separately.
Right.
It's a nice place for that. But we definitely don't clamp down and keep teachers from using tools outside of that list.
Okay.
So the list is to be helpful, to be supportive.
Hmm.
Um, the list is mostly built from the ground, the bottom up, in the way that we were talking about earlier, from teachers finding good tools and supporting those tool uses. Also, a place a teacher can look just for inspiration. If they're thinking, I'd like to try something new, let me look through the tool list. So it's a curated uh, set of tools that their colleagues and other colleagues from other schools have thought were really good. They might say like, oh, what is this Canva and how can I use it in my class? And a lot of people are thankful that the school ponies up, pays for the fees associated. But teachers are not limited to that. The exciting thing is that new tools that came in that weren't on the list, they came in from the drive of an individual teacher to do better at reaching their students, and then comes out into something that other teachers end up using. We do, there are, to be safe, going back to things Spaith was talking about, we don't want to innovate. We don't want to introduce new approaches that are dangerous, and dangerous takes different forms. We don't want to put students' information in danger. We need to maintain physical safety, things like that. So there are rules in the teacher handbook, so to speak, to make sure that we use things not only effectively but safely.
Really quick, Mike, I know you have a line of students outside your office right now. What advice would you give to someone starting a career in educational technology? And any learning resources, specific tools, skills, mindsets that you think are essential?
Well, first get to know their school librarian. I'm not just saying that, like, libraries are the model. Library is the place, the playground for
Yeah.
learning and as a teacher. And so really, be a librarian or get to know the librarian. I think too, learn all the technology you can, for sure. But also take care with, how it is that you work with people.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if that means take psychology courses, or just do those things that build your wholeness, because navigating change is what the business is about. And we know that change, some great important things come with change, but some really hard things, losses, and feelings of instability come along with that. So however it is that you center yourself,
Mhm.
so that you can help others navigate these new things, that would be my advice. I appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you.
Brandon, can I add something to lift up Michael? About a year ago, we had this really innovative sandbox session where we put together a list of like 70 AI tools that teachers could self-identify.
Mhm.
They wanted to play with them. And then we
Oh,
set them up in a group of other teachers that wanted to play with the same tools. And what it did was it gave these teachers an opportunity to be students together with other teachers and just try and break something or try and see the validity of it, and then share out to their peer teachers like, hey, we tried to have a conversation with a historian on this app, this AI app, and this is how it went. So they were learning from one another in real time using a tool. Then they'd turn around, they'd learn about a tool from their peer teacher, right behind them. So that was super fun. And I think it really was predicated on everyone feeling safe and a little bit like creative and having fun for the moment. There was super low stakes, and yeah, it was a real win for us as a team to see everyone playing with those tools.
Great. Thanks, Mike. I know you have to go.
This has been super fun.
Faith, I had one more question for you, similar to the question from Mike about advice you would give to those looking to pursue a career in library sciences or educational leadership.
What I love most about my job is that it's never the same day in and day out. I'm always learning, and I do believe that that's the role, that's the habit of mind that someone who goes into information professional, an informational professional capacity, kind of like tech. You're never going to make your name by knowing one tool really well. It's like how well you know a wide range of things and deploy them at the right moment. So I think anyone who's going into librarianship or information technology should know that the landscape is changing. What you learn now may not be applicable in 6 months. Change is something you should be very comfortable with, and grounding yourself in relationship building, I think, is really important too, because at the end of the day, having relationships is what's going to forward you and forward projects, get you working with some really amazing people doing fun things.
Wow, that was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was really fun. I think you're going to have a lot of fun with this. If you need anything, let us know. This has been a real pleasure.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right. Take it easy. Have a great break.
You too. Bye.
Bye.